Hi, everybody. This is Byron Jacobs from DMB Poker, doing another in our occasional series of interviews with our authors, generally because they've just produced a book. And today I'm delighted to welcome Alex Fitzgerald, who has been here before. He's done this, he knows the ropes. Hi, Alex. But we've got Mr. New Guy, Mr. Topher Goggin, and Topher and Alex have cooperated to produce Improve Your Poker Now. Now, not next week, not next month, now. Get on with it now. So that's the book we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, Alex, a very experienced author, has done several books for us previously. Topher is the new kid on the block, but he's done a great job on this book. And the first thing I'd like to do is chat to Topher very quickly. And so obviously should be well known to many people watching this. Topher, you won't be. Could you say a little bit about yourself quickly?
Sure, sure. As I oftentimes say to people, in real life, I'm a lawyer, but I do a number of other fun things on the side. Obviously, I play poker recreationally, and have written this book. I announce football and basketball for the local high school and college on the radio. Have done that for a number of years. Back when I was a little kid, actually, I wrote my own little sports newsletter that came out every couple of weeks. So I've done that for a while. I was teaching pre-calculus part-time at the local college because who doesn't want to take math from the local lawyer? So it's a handful of random things that I do, but including writing. I have another book that is a book of like sarcastic fairy tale retellings. Alex has read that. And so obviously the logical place to go from there is from Little Bo Peep jokes to writing a poker book.
Absolutely. And how do you two know? Were you a student of Alex's or something? Or
Exactly. So way back, you will remember Jonathan Little's Excelling at No Limit Hold'em book. I got that, I think maybe as a Christmas gift, and read through it, and it was interesting. It was interesting. And then I got to this chapter by this guy I'd never heard of, this Alex Fitzgerald character. And it was mind-blowing to me from the standpoint that, especially at that point in time, nobody was explaining poker concepts the way that he was. Some of the mathematical stuff, I mean, Alex, you know this example that you use of being able to raise with just garbage out of the small blind, doing the numbers and figuring out what somebody has to defend with to prevent you from just printing money no matter what. And I had never looked at it that way and realized that, oh my gosh, they got to be calling me with Jack 4 here or whatever it might be. And when I got done with that chapter and you got to the part that said, oh, by the way, this guy gives lessons, I thought, I need to try this. I need to meet this guy. So I ended up signing up for a couple of lessons, met him from there. We actually co-opted him as a player on our tag team at the WSOP a year later. We will not be commenting on how that went, but we had a nice time. And Alex and I have stayed in touch ever since.
okay, now if I could bring Alex in, obviously you've written stuff before. This is a new book that you've been involved in. What would you say this book brings to the table that perhaps your others don't, or only do sort of in passing? What's the focus that you really like about the book here?
What I really like about this book is Topher is such a good, clear writer, and that's something I've become very attracted to just as I get older because I do believe I can bring complex subjects down to digestible tidbits and make them very entertaining and easy to remember. But getting that clear writing has always been something I struggled with. And Topher was just showing me things when we were talking about poker. He said, "Hey, I thought about explaining it this way. What do you think about that?" And I went, "That is just a perfect sentence. You got to write that down." And by the seventh or eighth time he did that, we finally got talking about this project. And I really like how accessible it is for just anyone. And the title really resonates because it is about improving your poker immediately. It's so clear cut. It's so to the point that I believe it's accessible for anyone right now.
That's good because I think one of the things we're trying to do with the title is kind of say to people, this is not about memorizing 500 GTO situations. We're not going there. It's a different type of book. So,
Right.
confirming that that's what the content is like is good.
Mhm.
So So when you were obviously discussing the themes and the topics for the book, Alex, you're extremely experienced in writing about this stuff and also in coaching many people who are like Topher at their kind of level. Did Topher come up with things that surprised you for putting in the book, or was it mainly stuff that you expected to be in there, or did something that make you think, oh wow, I wouldn't have thought about dealing with that?
There was definitely a number of times where I almost got jealous, where I thought, okay, this is based on a concept that I put together years ago, but that's such a better way to put it in certain situations. And it was a lot of the fundamental stuff. It was a lot of what was really good is Topher's still very much in the trenches with folks who are just the analogy we use is, hey, if you're trying to learn math, don't start on calculus, start on algebra. And if you can start on algebra and you can get good at it, you'll be better than 99% of people when it comes to math. And when it comes to poker, obviously the GTO concepts are fantastic when you want to get very deep and you want to get into the much more complex situations. But just having some fundamentals and having some quick thoughts that you can go to that will eliminate the noise and help you get to the core of the issue. That's going to get you past 99% of people that are just playing casually. And I really liked how Topher would get those concepts super streamlined so that anybody could remember them.
Okay, that's great. But coming over to you, Topher, what would you say? Can you identify maybe like a couple of places where I mean, like Alex said, you're in the trenches in these games. Are there like maybe two or three little spots that just again and again and again you just see people doing it wrong and opportunities to exploit them, stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think looping back a little bit into what Alex said too, he's right that I play regularly with a group of friends that were kind of the people that I had in mind when we were writing this, of saying, okay, listen, if I was explaining this to Tom, what would I say to get that across? And the other thing that I think of, I'm a golfer. And there's a great deal of talk in golf about being unable to take your game from the driving range to the course. And I think that happens a lot with poker instruction as well. You read the book, you watch the YouTube video, like, oh yeah, I got this. You sit down at the table, wham, it's out the window. You're back to playing just like you were last week. And so what we were trying to figure out for these everyday players, as we call them, what are some concepts that you'll be able to ingrain, take to the table, improve now? Both Alex and I idolize Harrington on Hold'em. Obviously, it was written in a different era, but same idea. You read that book, you got better immediately. And so the concepts that we kind of zeroed in on with that were things like our big three principles, the idea that trying to play as many pots as possible in position, heads up with the betting lead. That's three things that you can remember and take to the table. We talked about people who are just trying to get comfortable with ranges. You look at that diagram or you see Michael Acevedo's book and there's 400 charts in it and you go, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And we said, think of a PB and J, pairs, big cards, and junk. What pairs is this guy playing? What big cards are they playing? How much junk are they playing right now? That's something that you can actually focus on in the heat of the moment and trying to come up with stuff like that. One of my favorites that we came up with was the phrase beware of Bob. Bob is the bet out of the blue. When you're dealing with an amateur player, the guy who is just at the card room on his Saturday afternoon, and he seems to sit around to the river, and then all of a sudden check raises you on the river. That bet out of the blue, that's usually pretty darn strong, even if it doesn't make sense based on how the hand was played. So multiple times through the book, we mentioned, hey, Bob just showed up at your table, look out. So that was kind of the idea of let's figure out a few of these things that anybody can immediately ingrain and take to the table. Is it necessarily going to be GTO play? No, it's not. And we make very clear that if you want to jump higher and higher in the game, you got to go beyond this book. But we can get you ahead of so many people that you can have a ton of fun playing and be successful, or then have the fundamentals to move even higher.
I really like the fact that you've got these little kind of nuggets that you can immediately bring to mind when you're confronted with a situation at the table. Because from my own experience of playing, I don't know if this is a shared experience of it or it's just, I don't imagine it's just me, but I think fairly clearly about what's going on. But every now and again, I bet and get raised, and I think, oh, for God's sake, they haven't got it again. Surely they can't, and any kind of technical thought just leaves my brain immediately, and I'm subsumed with this. Oh my God. Healing. So it's. I think in situations like that, like I said, I don't know if that's a shared experience. I imagine it probably is. Having like a little kind of mnemonic or something that you can go to is I think really helpful to sort of drag you back into your into an analytic frame of mind rather than a catastrophizing one.
Yeah. Alex is so good at that. One of the things that he often will talk about is, okay, if you're trying to decide whether or not to call a big bet from your opponent, asking yourself, would this opponent make this bet with what he calls generally X, the next worst hand out there? So if you've got ace queen, would the opponent make this bet for value with ace jack? And if you look at that and say, no, they wouldn't do that, most opponents at lower stakes levels are not bluffing enough to have enough bluffs to justify calling. That's not running numbers. That's not doing calculus at the table. That's something that you can think through quickly and at least give yourself a starting point for your analysis. Alex has got so many of those. I tried to take the ones that I thought were easiest to translate. A couple times I came up with some new names for them, but it's all his stuff, just put in a way that we think you can really take to the tables.
Okay, could you maybe say a little bit about the sort of working process between you? How did you actually coordinate to get the material together? Just loosely, Alex.
So what we started with is a lot of my materials about the game, and then Topher would look at it and go, okay, what would be confusing to Tom? And then Topher would try out some sentences that he thought would work with a Tom. Then he would show it to me, and I went through everything and went, okay, this is confusing. This isn't. Uh, Maybe we simplified a little bit too much here. And then we went back and forth and whatnot. And then Topher just could churn out words. It was incredible. At one point, we got really fast, got a lot done. And I put together, when we did want to make it a little bit more complicated, then I would write those sections. So there is one section in the book where I go over some hands where we really try to put everything together. And then at the end of sections, I would put some notes in my own language to hopefully give you another way to memorize some of these core concepts with maybe some more. I feel like Topher's the clearer writer. I would hope some of my things would be really entertaining though, and hopefully would stick in your mind when that pressure is on.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, that's exactly what we did. That once we kind of had the green light to take a shot at this, I wrote to Alex and said, okay, what do you think belongs in this book, and what have you done on those subjects so far? And so he sent me some articles, links to a couple of video training series that I had already done, but sort of confirming, yep, those are the spots to start. And then we put some stuff together. Anytime that I would finish a chapter, I'd send it back to him, say, hey, what's your feedback here? We'd tinker with it. And then he wrote a section at the end of each chapter called Alex's Keys, which we made up on the thought that we would have some little Ace King AK Alex's Keys graphic. We never ended up doing that, but it was fun. But you got that little dose of Alex in Alex's own words. And then the last full chapter of the book is a quiz by Alex, taking you through with his process. And part of the idea there was, A, people want to hear from Alex. They don't just want to hear from me. But also that would provide a bridge through to Alex's other work to get a taste of, okay, this is how he's going to approach stuff for the people who want a little bit more.
Yeah, that all makes sense and sounds good. Was there anything that you actually disagreed on, or was it very smooth the whole way through?
It was pretty smooth the entire way through. There's sometimes I would have to look at a sentence and go, I guess that's pretty much right. I want to add more details, but then that gets really complicated and then you can't memorize that at the table. But those were more internal debates with myself. I really liked where we ended up on the majority of this.
What I remember more are a couple of times where I was writing something and I got stuck. For instance, maybe we're trying to work through a hand to illustrate a concept, and I'm like, okay, we're good here. This is what we need to do on the flop. I want this turn card, but are we going to jam here? Are we going to go through the river? And at that point, I would just pause and send it to Alex and say, hey, what do we need to do here? So I think that we did a pretty good job of anticipating where those disagreements would come before we got to them. And then I just asked the guy who actually knows. As I tell people, I'm just a writer. I'm a better writer than I am a player, or at least I hope so.
I think you're a very good writer. I mean, I've, been producing books for a long time, and this one is very well written. Does that come from your sort of lawyer background? Your sort of very comfortable command of language and words.
It's interesting because I heard Alex talk about that when he was on the Chip Race podcast, and I think that may be part of it. I think the other part of it, though, is the broadcasting background. That because when you're in a position that you are calling a football game, a basketball game, you've got to try to illustrate concepts for people who can't see them and do it on the fly. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. But I think that is part of it. I actually got to give a speech at my college graduation, and the speech was confusingly, seemingly about NASCAR because a popular graduation topic. But what it was really about was that a true sign of success or a skill for success is the ability to explain what you know. And the NASCAR tie-in was that when you see a NASCAR interview, it's all slang, it's all jargon. And if you don't know NASCAR, you have no idea what they're talking about. And that so many people in the world are very, very intelligent, but if they can't communicate what they know, it will only take them so far. So I think that's always been something that I have tried to work on with myself is how can I explain this to somebody else? And hopefully that comes through.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks very much, guys. Now, just to reiterate, this is the book that we've been talking about. Improve Your Poker Now. It's out. It's available. Well, it was obviously out. I'm holding one up. It's available from both in the US and Europe from all the. We'd love it if you buy it from our site. That would be wonderful. But of course, in practical terms, a lot of you are going to go to the standard retailers. Obviously, the electronic versions are available too. So this is the book, and we'd love it if you'd go out there and buy it and improve your poker right now. Is there anything you'd like to say, guys, quickly to just wrap up?
Nothing in particular. Just thank you so much for letting me take this ride with you and go with it. And I think this is the perfect time to be doing this interview because we're a couple months in front of the WSOP. A lot of our readers are folks who are going to take a week to go to Las Vegas to live that dream. This is just the right amount of time to get the book, read through that, ingrain a few of those principles, and then take them and take the pros' monies out in Vegas.
Alex?
Thank you for having me. Just that's pretty much it. I'm still in love with the fact that I get to put these books together because when I was starting out dead broke, it was poker books that got me to that next level. So it's really fun to get to pay it forward. So go ahead, everybody, check out that book. You'll love it. It really gets to the core of what it takes to advance rapidly.
Okay, that's great. Alex, Topher, thank you very much. Everyone out there, good luck with your games. Buy the book and kill it at the WSOP this year. Okay, thanks.